welcome to this episode of Conscious Design. I'm Ian Peterman, your host, and also author of the Conscious Design book. And I'm really excited to have here Isabel, co-founder and designer at LastObject, a company working to reduce the waste from our single-use products that we like to have everywhere. So welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, so tell us a little bit about your story and how you got started. What was your guys' impetus to start Last Object?
Well, I started with my two co-founders, and they're also designers as I am. And I think it's not like a oh my god, and then I saw this thing, and then suddenly we like revolutionized something. It was like an easy we were doing different things at the time. It's 3 years ago now, and I was working in hospitals. They were doing a lot of like furniture design, and we were actually just had like a an office space together. One of them is my brother. That's how I kind of intertwined. And we really it came quite naturally. We wanted to do something with a purpose, and if we did go into doing something, and it's not like it's not purposeful to design, but it's just we wanted to do something that was good for Mother Earth in the scheme of really wanting to design a way through problems. And this is where we kind of felt that there was uh, we felt that it was just like a kind of light bulb thing when we saw single use, and when we not just like saw it but saw it in our own daily lives. And it was actually just a notion, like what would, if we had to do something, it really had to have a huge impact. And when we stumble across the research and everything that we know about production and as designers, and we just like found this like holy grail of just a lot of trash being generated and shipped and packaged and being used once and thrown out. And it was like it kind of became like crazy. And I'm not saying that we're going to make like toilet paper reusable like next year, but there are a lot of single-use items that we use every day that just don't have that don't need, we don't need it to use it as a single use. We can design our way through it and make it a convenient and alternative to this by making reusables. So that was, but it was a few weeks, and it was like kind of a merge of everything. And then we just kind of dug into it and tried. And the Q-tip was, weirdly enough, the first one we kind of solved material wise and design wise. And that was really, there's no like hocus pocus. We just had a list of single use items we wanted to try to make.
Oh, that's awesome. That's awesome. And so it's not a single light bulb moment, which I think is good to mention because there's a lot of focus on, well, there was a light bulb moment and instantaneously we knew exactly what to do, and it doesn't always happen that way. And as designers, we know that doesn't happen that way most of the time. It's a process of, well, let's think about this. We want to do something. And then a few weeks later, some more conversation and some more thinking. And then eventually you come up with a list of things, like you guys did, a list of, oh, well, we want to, here's some things we could tackle. And, we, as a designer, you're always thinking about solutions. So it's never, it's never a just sit down here. I designed it. Here you go. It's done process. So I appreciate you mentioning that as a designer for for everyone else who's listening, to also realize that. And so you guys started with the Q-tip, right? And launched that. Talk a little bit about that process of you created the design, you created the solution. As a designer, you know it's going to work, right, on that technical level. What was that? What was the process after that, and how did it go in kind of validating and you know getting the success basically of people also identifying with, hey, I could use that product. That sounds better than throwing away what I'm already using.
Yeah, no, there was a huge process of trying to market, trying to figure out like how do we position ourselves, how do we want to talk about this, how do we frame it. And actually we did multiple different things, but some of the things that, well, when I look back at now, which were really successful, and and good decisions. There's also a lot of bad decisions, but some of the good decisions were we did a Kickstarter, and this helped us to kind of test things out, to talk
Mm.
about it, and like not only, but just also for ourselves, like making a page, trying to explain this product with very few words, making a video, trying to like be engaging and meeting people at eye level without being like, oh my God, we have this amazing design and this is just absolutely, amazing, amazing. It's,
Right.
we had to really be like, okay, we have a problem and this is a solution. How do we, first of all, show people that this is a problem? And how
Right.
do we also show that this can be a solution? And and then we did a lot of ads on Facebook and did quite a lot of lead generation up to the Kickstarter. And this is also a way that we could, with a very simple page, A/B test it. So we would use different, like every 24 hours, we would change something out. And because we had so many leads going through, so we could kind of be like, okay, we're going to show this color compared to this color. We're going to show the problem first and then the solution. No, we should choose the solution and then the problem. So we're doing like all these like little tests, and it gave us such huge insight to how to actually talk about this and how to market it. And all of these learnings in the weeks up to our Kickstarter, kind of paved the way to how we created that page. And then I would also say this was kind of like not something I had kind of calculated into it, but a lot of people, especially on Facebook, were like, that's disgusting. And I think that because, people were talking about it, people were commenting, people were sharing, not always because they thought this was an absolutely amazing design or solution, because they thought this was so disgusting that somebody had made a Q-tip reusable. It was like, oh my God, people. So, and that actually made us spike a bit because it was shared a lot and it was commented a lot. And people were actually also, in the beginning, we were like, what do you mean? And we were commenting back, but then this is hygienic because of this and this. And they were like answering all these questions. So suddenly you saw like interaction between people on our products, and it was
Mm.
that was quite amazing, but it also made the whole thing blow up a bit.
Right. Well, that's awesome. That's, I guess, one of the times when bad press is actually useful. And it's great that you were having the conversation happening between people. So it also showed that there were people that are really for it and really saw what you guys were seeing. So I guess that's also good, right? To be able to confirm and know that there's people out there defending your product basically and saying, no, it is a good idea. I like it, and so that's kind of a unique position, right? To be in the middle of a conversation like that, but good feedback. Um,
Yeah.
you know, when you guys so you guys did that launch, it was successful. You are getting more and more into the market. What You have your list, right, of products. So how did you go about deciding, okay, well, we have success. What are we going to tackle next? Like what do you guys go through in order to, really figure that out? Or is it just you have a list somewhere and it's in random order and and you just pick it off?
I think we have like darlings in between us. So, for example, I was very much into the menstrual pad that we did. So that was something that I kind of, and also Cole, one of not my brother, but our partner, and we were very like keen on getting this product to market. So I think that sometimes that's what drives it, but often we look at two variables mostly, and that is how much of an impact is it. So, for
Mm.
example, straws, that has an impact, but toilet paper has a bigger impact. So because this is something that everybody uses, and then you can look at Q-tips. Okay, that's so small, but a lot of people use it, and it's often with like plastic stems, and they go through the filtration. So there's a whole different, there's a reason why that is actually a really big issue. And you
Right.
see this with all the different single-use items that we have today, is that there are some that are easy changes, and then there are some that are harder changes, and then you have something that may, and there's everything. Like some of the harder changes can sometimes be some of like the maybe least important ones if you look at the environment, and then vice versa. So it's not black and white. We just really want to tackle a problem that is a huge issue. And then we want to tackle a problem that's not, landing on the moon. So it's really being like in between those two, and then trying to figure out like where should we put our energy?
Got it. And when you guys are looking at impact, right, of a product, so you mentioned some things like, looking at the Q-tip, they're small, right? We all know they're pretty small, but they have plastic, and they're highly, you use it once, you throw it away. We use a lot of them, right? So it's a very large volume. What are the kinds of impacts that you guys are, when you're doing that and you're thinking through it, what are the ones that you're looking for? Is it the plastic components? Is it, is there anything else that you guys are really looking at that you guys, as a team are saying these are huge impact points that we specifically are really focusing on dealing with?
Hmm. Yes, we do look a lot at, when we look at these products, we do look on how many times you use, like how often. Is it like a very frequent thing that we have in our everyday life? Then we know that it is something that is probably going to be high on the list. So that's like a no-brainer. So something that we use daily, weekly, but it can't be like something you use once a month, because that doesn't have that
Right.
accumulation issue, which is like kind of these like silent problems that we have environmentally. So that's what we look at. And then when we then like when we take everything that we like use a lot
Right.
throughout, then we can look at water consumption and production. We can look at how we discard of it, so the waste, but also landfill. For example, if it's something like cotton rounds, um, cotton is actually very expensive water-wise to produce, but it's also really expensive for, not expensive, but bad for the environment. It takes a lot of land to actually grow a lot of
Right.
cotton. So there are so many different like factorials. Um, there's also an issue sometimes with transportation. Something is really heavy, something is big, something is packaged a lot of times. Pads, for example, they're not just packaged in a package, they're like individually packaged in plastic, a sanitary pad. And so this is a huge issue, not only in the product itself, but it's also a huge issue in the packaging of, in the package of the package of the package. Like it's
Right.
extreme how much plastic is
And it's
produced
more
and
weight.
made around it.
It,
And
it
it's
makes
more
it
weight.
heavier, which makes it worse to
Yeah,
ship,
yeah,
and then you have to throw it away too, which is not
yeah,
that stacks very quickly once you start
yeah,
layering the packaging on.
yeah.
Yeah. So, well, that's good. So you guys are looking at not just, and this is something I talk to people when I work with clients and stuff, is, well, there's the impact of the product itself, which is great. Like
Hmm.
I feel like the consumer these days is far more aware of that. It's far more aware, and now people are starting to be aware more of what you're talking about. Well, the amount of water used to grow the cotton plant, to create the cotton used in the cotton ball. Yeah, the cotton ball technically, it's cotton, so we can't be too mad at it. But the process of making it is super water intensive, or not, it's more detrimental to the environment and things like that. And so it's great to see you guys are looking at those impacts. What are you seeing, when you have customers, and you're obviously, you guys are looking through all of this, do you see a trend in consumers caring about those things too? Is that something that you're having those dialogues, and you're really kind of diving into that conversation, or is it still more focused on, well, you're just not throwing it away? and that's kind of the end still.
I think sometimes it's easier to explain a problem by being like, look how much this is compared to this. So like, look at 1,000 cotton swabs and then look at this one product. Like sometimes that's an easier discussion to have. But I do feel that people are more and more open, and especially the amazing community that's kind of like been or is creating itself in sustainability, is asking a lot of really valid questions, and is, you know, taking greenwashing into consideration when they do look at different products. So they are involving themselves in understanding it, and even like I work 24/7 in a sustainable company. We're doing sustainable reports. We're, you know, everything about life cycle analysis. All these are different things that you can that we can use to validate our products. And still, I am confused sometimes. I think that it is such a complex, like sustainability in itself. It's just, it's so hard for me to even like grasp a lot of the things that are coming, and things are changing too. Like materials sometimes like, oh, in this context it's bad. In this context it's good. You know, it's so
Right.
hard to know where to actually where you are doing good and where you're doing not. I think so in that sense, I'm so happy that yes, we are diving into the discussion, and we're also getting better and better to explain it. um and you can't just come and say, oh, we're 97% better footprint wise. I don't think that people really, what does that mean? Or
Right.
like, oh, we have this
Right.
less you know, CO2 emissions. You know, it's everything is like, what is one CO2 emission, what is two? Like it's not yeah, it's not like, that's not how we as humans can also understand these different factors. I think water actually is something that I felt is a really nice way of explaining a lot of the stuff, because producing a product, I remember there were these t-shirts at one point where they would write like, this t-shirt took I don't know, like 3,000 liters to create or something. And
Right. Yeah, yeah, I
I think,
remember those.
yeah, and it was like a really but that was the first like time where I was like, oh wait, like it's not just the t-shirts. You, oh, okay, wait. So, and then you look at meat industry, and then they were like, okay, wow, okay, I'm not even gonna get into that. So I think that that's like a really nice measuring thing, water, because it's something like
Right.
a liter of water is something we understand.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point because there is like, you know, we talk about carbon footprint, right? But like you said, well, what is one carbon footprint? What like what does that actually mean? And I even I've had a conversation with someone that was trying to figure, well, how do we track that? Like what would it take for you to like have your smartphone or your smartwatch tell you when you've output a carbon footprint? Like how do we even measure that for on the individual level and then translate it into a way that makes sense where you can go, oh well, I'll choose not to do that because that will be more like, outside of driving your car more efficiently, there's very few things that have that easy like one to one. If I choose the apple, it's this, and if I choose the orange, it's this, and that's very ambiguous. We'll call it. But I love you pointing out the water part because that is something that people, and we all know what a gallon of water is. We all know how much water we drink. It's so much more relatable. So it's great you're pointing that out because it is so important to be able to tell your story. And so in you guys figuring out how to tell your story, water is a component, but is there anything else that you guys have kind of zeroed on as like, how do you tell the story of not just the product, right? But like the t-shirt is like X number of liters to make this t-shirt. It's not just about the t-shirt, it's about all the stuff before the t-shirt. So what are other things that you guys are finding that work that allow you to really communicate that in a way that's making sense? And I know I'm confused by it as well, and I work in it daily. So but what are you guys finding that's useful, that's more connecting with people and being able to explain that?
I think we're also just tapping into this because I think it is a bit. I think it's difficult. What has been most successful for us is definitely doing like the one-to-one. So being like, this packet of tissues replaces 3,100 single-use tissues, and it's packaging and it's shipping and it's, and I
Mm,
think that that kind of that reflects really well because that's something that's um better to grasp. It's like a one-to-one. It's like, oh, this product, and then okay, so if I use this 30 times, then I've actually already, now I'm in zero. I think that people like zero waste is not zero waste, but it is, we're trying to get as close to zero as possible. So
right.
I think that helps a lot. Yeah, water is just something new that I'm trying out because I feel like sometimes especially when we're working in the cotton industry, it's just absolutely crazy. I've also felt that going into, for example, we're talking a lot about the ocean, and we're doing a lot of initiatives to clean out the ocean. I think that using numbers like, for example, a kilo or 2 pounds of plastic from the ocean, that's also graspable. Okay, I would like to take that out of the ocean. Like that's a lot. That's something like I would be able to carry in my arms. Like, okay. So I
Right.
think that uh, things like that, something that you can put down. I don't think that numbers like 1 billion, and we also use that, but it's just
But it's
it's
hard.
harder to grasp.
Yeah, yeah. 1 billion anything is it's hard to grasp. What does that really what does that really mean? I think we all stop counting at like 1,000 anyway. So after that, it just
Exactly.
gets harder and harder to count.
Exactly.
Oh, so as you're you guys are launching more products, you're working on more products. What is kind of your long-term goals beside what are you guys looking at long term as the impact you guys are wanting to make in the world?
Ooh, okay, I think
I
this
know,
is
big.
I won't take, yeah, I won't, this is big, and I won't take anybody, like I won't put everybody in my company down in this and this is gonna sound evil. My real dream is to completely make single-use products instant, like uh, just take them down. I don't know how to say this in a nice way. I'm really trying to. I really hope that we can see that a production will stop because, for example, let's go back to the Q-tip, our first product. The Q-tip industry, single-use industry, is, it's going up by 3% every year, and we're already at like 5 million now. I'm using all those numbers. 5 million a year of Q-tips are produced single-use, and I wish that sometime at some point we'll see it being 2%, 1%, zero, minus. And then it gets fun because now we're actually making a difference. This is going to take some time, and it's in different categories, and we're going into different like. And I'm not going to make a huge uh, war against Kleenex. I would want to, but I'm not. But I really
Disclaimer.
like, disclaimer. Yeah, please don't listen in. I really, really hope that we can remove this industry completely.
Well, I mean, you started with this sounds evil, but I don't think it sounds evil at all. I think that's a great mission, and I think that you hopefully other companies will join you, and that would be my that would be my hope, is that there's other, because there's so many single use products out there.
Absolutely.
And I think it's great you guys are tackling kind of the bathroom, right? It is a space that we just haven't, most of us don't think about. We just go in, we use stuff, and we exit, and we don't really think about those products too much. I mean, the makeup world and the cosmetics world has gotten its spotlight a little bit. They're figuring out how to make better cosmetics now, but that's kind of been the extent of really diving into what happens with all the bathroom products, which there's a lot of them that we we put into a bathroom. So I think it's great you guys are focusing in on it. Do you have, are there other single use areas that are kind of like next on list? Because I feel like bathroom is like this huge kind of treasure trove, right? You could spend years going through and swapping those out. But are there other areas that you guys are even looking at or thinking about that you also are like, that's also a treasure trove of single use that, maybe one day, maybe sooner, you guys are starting to think about outside of the bathroom?
I think we have a few years left in the bathroom.
Oh, and
I
easily,
I think
easily.
easily. And so I'm kind of but I do think that we can work around. We've actually talked a lot about the kitchen. And there are some
Mm.
things that would be fun to work on. I think that there are also other companies that are in, for example, I'm never going to make a straw. Like I think there's so many great solutions
There
to
are lots of
replacing.
them.
There are a lot of them. So, and that's great. That's awesome. And so there are some areas that I kind of feel like it, people have alternatives here. That's fine. And then there are areas, like for example, in the baby department, I feel like there are a lot of, and that's also kind of in the bathroom, can be, and also a little
I know
bit
babies
outside.
babies are its whole own collection of single use products out there. It's crazy how many
Exactly.
how
And
many
you
there
are,
are.
it's so crazy. And there are also a lot of companies that are trying to make good in this area too. So which is really interesting. But I feel like if I can solve some of the things for like mothers in the beginning of, or just the first 5 years of when you have a kid, then I have succeeded in life, because being able to give them an alternative that they actually have energy to actually, one thing is, and when you're in your 20s and you're like, okay, I'll use a new makeup stick. Okay, wow, okay, reusable rounds, let me try it out. But if you can get a mom for two little kids to change a habit that's actually beneficial for her and is not stressing her down, I think that's like, okay, that's a really good design then. Like then you've really hit the nail on that, in conveniency and in usefulness. So I think there are a lot of things in the baby department and in that area, like just also just framing around it, that I would love to try to just make some kind of difference. But yeah, I feel like bathroom depart. Yeah, I think
Yeah.
we have a couple of years. Ask me in 5 years, then I'm probably gonna be like, yes, listen.
If we did 80% of the bathroom in 5 years, we're gonna start looking outside of it now. Yeah, I think, yeah, baby products is huge, and yeah, the bathroom is huge. And those are massive areas that need more help, that need you guys to make more products for. Um, so kind of just to wrap up, you guys have your product list. You're working through it. What are there any immediate things that you guys are doing with these products that people don't know as much about, or you're working on trying to get out there?
Right now,
Yeah.
right now, actually, we just launched like half a year ago a menstrual pad, and this is kind of a very different area, for us to be in. So in that sense, it's kind of like we've tried to open up a different dialogue, and also
Mm.
um, cater to some other, like if, for example, I've found that actually there's a lot of taboo and shame around the menstrual cycle, even though it's like so normal. It's that everybody, it goes through it in so
It's
many
a
years of your life.
whole. I have girls that are becoming teenagers, so it's a whole thing that
It
is odd. I mean,
exactly.
that's the best way to put it for me. Is it's just not, it's, yeah, it's taboo, it's not talked about, it's a very interesting space to launch a product into, I would I would
Exactly.
imagine.
It is, and it's really rewarding. It's very exciting and interesting, because I kind of felt like we went from earwax like to buggers to like I kind of feel like we've looked on a lot of different fluids that are coming out of our bodies that we're kind of trying to handle, and blood is just also one of those fluids, but because it is in this scheme, and it is culturally just globally um, been put in this area of the house, in this corner. I think that's something new, very new. Like as I explained, my brother is one of our co-founders, and he knows so much about my menstrual cycle now because we had to like talk it through, and we had to like to explain all these things. And I think that this is quite exciting, because we are getting into a phase where these things are talked about, but it's also something very new for us to dig in at as a company, and I don't think that we realized it before we had launched.
Mm. Yeah, I can see that. It would be hard to imagine before you get out there, right? And then see what see what happens. But it applies to 50% of the population, roughly. I think it's actually slightly more than 50%. So it's a very needed product area. And
Mhm.
in launching it and having these different dialogues, is it are you finding that, obviously your core mission is sustainability and better environmental impact, but with products in this area, are you seeing it, is it as much about the sustainability side, or are you entering more of like education, social conversation than even sustainability?
Yes, I feel like we are, because now we're getting into necessities. Cleaning your ears or blowing your nose isn't necessarily a necessity, and
That's a good
it
point.
can be, it can be, but
Yeah,
not for
but not
everybody.
generally.
And like removing your makeup, and I feel like we've been in a little bit of soft. I think there are two things to it. One thing is, and we've been in this area with especially like the our cotton round, or our reusable, and yeah, to remove makeup and stuff, that there are a lot of things in the single use department that's kind of made with like pesticides, and with like everything that's white has been bleached with chlorine. It's all these things that you kind of learn about when you like get into these, but working with, for example, something like menstruation, I think there's a field where we're talking about what's actually healthy for you. um I would
Mm.
never use a tampon now ever in my life, but I've used plenty. So it's something that we have to, you educate yourself and you become educated also, and time moves. So this is definitely something that we haven't seen with the other products in the same degree. And then something completely new is also the social responsibility, um, that not everybody, a lot of, or not everybody, 50% of the world's population bleed, but not everybody has access to the necessity and
Mm.
necessary products to go through, and have to stay home, kind of work. A lot of like things, or are fleeting from another country. Like I feel like now I've entered a space where we have to be responsible socially too, and we have to give back to everybody who can't buy our products but should be able to use them.
Right. Well, and that's interesting. Right? You have there's a whole social stigma, and that portion of the conversation, and then also you're talking about the necessity level, right? So I feel like you kind of broke into two new areas, completely new areas with one product, which would be a learning process to say the least. Are you on the necessity side? Does that change how your packaging, branding, your how you talk about it? Does that change the type of conversation as well, or is it just people need it more than than earwax cleaning?
If it changes, like for example, on our packaging, how we talk about the products,
Yeah.
I think I feel like I've had a want, or I've had an urge, and also they've let me do this in the company, to talk a little bit more rough, I would say, or be a little bit more cheeky in every and like things that are explained. For example, when I was doing updates on Kickstarter, I would, do announcement where we're like, we're bloody excited, and it was just like an update on last pad. And I think that, being a little bit more provocative, I didn't write updates with the swab like, clean out your ears. Well, there's not that humor in the same way, but with blood, I just did like a washing explanation. And first we had written like, you have to wash it at 30 degrees. And I was like, no, you should wash it at cold wash because blood sets, but you can wash it with your, dark clothes or with your boyfriend shirts. It's all about what your mood is in. It's, changing the subject, being like, so we don't talk so, oh yeah, this is blood and you should wash it in this degrees. Like, no, or yeah, degrees, but you can actually wash it with any clothes, and like
Right.
making fun about it. Like, I actually only wash my menstrual pads with my boyfriend's clothes. Of course I do. Like, that's, of course.
So you're seeing a need for a different type of voice. Really is
Yeah.
is changing the structure, not as point A, B, C, and having it more open conversation around
Hmm.
it. Well, that's awesome. That's exciting for you to be able to expand and
Exactly.
open those dialogues. I'm sure there's a lot of conversations that are able to happen around it that you're able to help facilitate, and which is great. It's great great to see someone's actually in that space, really applying those things. So, to wrap it up, this has been a really great conversation. I've enjoyed learning more about your guys' products and your journey. Is there any last thing that you'd want to share, tip, something you learned on the journey that you want people to be aware of?
Cheeky and simple. But I kind of feel I haven't been, sustainable my whole life. It's not something that I'm grown up in, a fine sustainably kind of background, but I've also had to learn a lot of these things and exploring them, and that has just like been an amazing journey in itself. And it's been quite a few years also before last object. But what the only thing I wanted to like tell anyone was, or if I could talk to myself 10 years ago, do one thing at a time, uh but like do it properly, because this is going to be a lot of fun, and like it's also addicting. So every time you like start, if you start changing something up in your daily life, so it becomes more sustainable, it's a fun game to actually play. So just like take one thing at a time, so it really sets, so you don't get overwhelmed, because that's also awful. And then you can end up being like, fuck it, I'm not going to do anything. And that's not, that's not necessary. You can just take one thing at a time, changing it up, and then it will like trickle down. One of my friends did like a year, and every month she changed out something new. And it could also be like stop drinking coffee, and then she just did it for a month, and then if she wanted to do it after that month, then she would hold on to it. And I think that was like such a great thing in habits in general. And a lot of the single use and a lot of the non-sustainable things that we do throughout our lives are just mainly habits.
Yeah, well, that's a great point, and that's something I even talk to clients about, is trying to bite off a huge, become instantly 100% sustainable. It's not sustainable to try to do that. It doesn't work. You'll crash and burn and get tired of it and give up. So it's great, and you're bringing personal life too. That's a great point. Is take one little step at a time. Just make, as you said, do it right. That's the important part, is to put the effort in to do it correctly the first time. So awesome. Well, for anybody that wants to get a hold of you guys, buy your products, find you, what's the best places to do that?
You can, yeah, you can go on LastObject.com. And you would also, Instagram is a really good platform to keep
Perfect.
updated on new releases. And we also have a newsletter and stuff. So a lot of different like things. But yeah, our Instagram is fun.
All right, you said you have a discount code for listeners. You share
Yes,
that.
I have a discount code for 15% on our website on lastobject.com, and it's conscious 15.
Fantastic. Well, that'll also be in the description. Awesome. Well, we'll make sure links are in the description to all those things. And thank you so much for taking some time out of your evening to chat with me.
Of course, it was my pleasure.